What a busy, interesting week it has been for the Buckeyes, but guess what? We're almost through it and into Saturday. But before we can get to that, it's bold predictions time. It's Freaky Friday. It is The Beat. It's the Austin Birm Show. It has the show with 10 million names. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. One day away from Senior Day, Ohio State and Rutgers. Before we get to that, Birm, got to get into score predictions. And start with your relief that it is a Friday and that we get to watch a football game tomorrow.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I mean, we've been talking about this season for so long, and all of the offseason, it seemed like it took forever. And now here we are in the last home game of the year. And again, I want to reiterate before we even dive into the ludicrousness. Is that a word? I'm not sure. Into the ridiculousness. The ridiculousness of this show that it is every week. I want to reiterate for people how important it is if you're going to this game to get there and celebrate these seniors that are walking and playing their last game at Ohio State. I was told 27 minutes ahead of kickoff is when Senior Day festivities will start. So like right at 11:45 or so. So get yourselves in there, get in your seats early and celebrate with these kids because they really deserve it. And, a couple of them will be talked about in this episode, I'm sure. But for those that will not be discussed or given a bold prediction, few moments of attention, I think that it's really important that they get some love because it's a group that is awesome and they're really great kids and we're lucky to cover them.
Yeah, it's an interesting Senior Day celebration. It's not that large. It's not as robust as the one that was a year ago, but maybe that just means you have to appreciate some of them double for the way that they've stuck it out. And their last opportunity, that's a bold prediction right off the bat, that there will not be a playoff game in the Horseshoe. That's where I'm at. I know that that's jumping ahead to maybe next Friday's bold predictions a little bit because it's directly tied to that. But I believe Ohio State's going to win these next two games. And so this regular season finale will be the home finale for the seniors. They will play Rutgers as 31.5-point favorites. The over-under Birm is 55.5. And I feel like I've got my order flipped around. Last week, I thought Ryan Day would, and he did run the ball a lot to get through that game, and UCLA just couldn't stop him, and then the scores kind of got out of hand. I thought it would be closer. I thought it would be like a 2.5-hour game and get out of it. And the tendency is to think that's what you would do against Rutgers in their porous rush defense and then save everybody as much as you can to get ready for the game. I kind of am starting to feel like they might score more in this game, just even if it's just because Rutgers is so deficient on defense that they won't be able to stop anyone who's on the field. But I'm talking myself increasingly more into the passing attack being featured, because if we posit that maybe Jeremiah Smith is limited and maybe Carnell Tate doesn't play again, Julian Sayin might benefit from a lot of reps with Mylan Graham and Bryson Rogers and Quincy Porter and Brandon Ennis, just in case, test that out, maybe build some rapport. And so I think I might have it backwards from where I viewed it last week, and I was wrong.
I think it's actually important because if you recall, if we go back to Tuesday morning's press conference at Ohio State, when I asked Ryan Day about some of the inconsistency with Julian Sayin in the second half of the game against UCLA, I was asking it from a perspective of does a potential foot injury cause some issues there? And obviously that's been poo-pooed this week. It's been, hey, Julian's fine. There's nothing going on. He's practiced full go every day. But Ryan Day immediately bringing up the fact that there were guys out there that he hadn't really spent a lot of time throwing the ball to, I think it does lead some credence or lend some credence to that discussion. Rutgers is interesting, man. I mean, here's the funniest thing as we start to research. We're not going to pretend we're not posers here. We don't do a lot of research for these shows because we don't pay a lot of time or attention to the other teams that the Buckeyes are playing unless it's Michigan or Texas or a bowl game or something like that. But Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis has thrown for more yards than Julian Sayin this year, which was like, fascinating. Their top two running backs have rushed for more yards than Ohio State's top two running backs. And in fact, they have a 1,000-yard rusher this season already. And a guy that had over 200 yards against Maryland a few weeks ago, they're productive. Their top three receivers, they have three receivers with more catches than Carnell Tate. Now, Carnell Tate's missed 2 games, and so that's going to play a part in it. But their top receiver has more yards than Jeremiah Smith. Like they actually are a fairly interesting offense. And so I think that there's a chance for all of the discussion this week has been like, oh, look past Rutgers, look past Rutgers. I think that this balance of the Rutgers offense is actually probably going to be the most balanced offensive attack Ohio State has faced this year. And I mean that ahead of Illinois or Texas or anybody else. So I think there's actually a good opportunity. And that's why when you look at this line, the 31.5 and a 54.5 over under, I mean, what is that assumed score? Because I'm not good at this stuff. What is that? Like,
what would that be? 43 to 12? Is that right? Something around there.
so, I mean, I think you're looking at a couple touchdowns from Rutgers. I think they're going to put Ohio
Why'd you
State
put me on the spot? This isn't a math show.
I just want people to see how quick your brain works. But I think that this is actually an opportunity for Ohio State. I don't think Rutgers is going to come out and try and like drain the clock. I think that they have seen, and again, people can have their opinions about Greg Schiano, what he is as a coach or what their talent level is there. But if you want to challenge this Ohio State team, I think the way you do it, especially with the Buckeye defense, is by going quick and by mixing things up. And I think Rutgers is actually going to give Ohio State's defense its best test of the season. And that's like a bold prediction here. I think Rutgers is actually going to score 17 points this week, which no one has done against Ohio State this year. So give me Ohio State 45, Rutgers 17. So take the over, but not the cover.
Interesting. All right. I think I have Ohio State winning this game 49-13. And the 13 is not because of what you talked about with the balance of the Rutgers offense, the different ways that they might be able to at least give Matt Patricia's defense looks on both the passing attack and the rushing game. I just think there's going to be some shenanigans at some point, whether that's special teams, whether that's wild end rounds, whether that's fumble rooskies or double snaps, or like Greg Schiano's going to empty that bag. And that's one of the things that you don't really prepare for if you're Matt Patricia. Like, he's got enough on his plate without having to worry about if Greg Schiano is going to unveil a bunch of trick plays. If he does, you just tip your hat to him and say, that's well designed. You're still going to be losing this game by 4 scores.
It's interesting. Rutgers is 5-5 right now. They're in the middle of the pack in pretty much everything statistically, nationally, except for rush defense. They need to win one more game to get bowl eligible. And I think that there's a part of them that believes that they will have a shot to beat Penn State next week with everything going on there. So there's another conversation, like how much do they do this weekend? Because they know they're not going to beat Ohio State this weekend, but they think they have a chance. It's funny. I was, again, doing a little bit of research for the show, and I read an article from November 9th talking about how big the opportunity is for Rutgers to beat Penn State. So like they like look past a couple of games and like, we're not even worried about Ohio State. Like they're like, oh, we got 5 wins now, we're good. So it's going to be an interesting weekend. We know that Greg Schiano will have some stuff up his sleeve, and I think Ohio State might reveal some stuff this week too, just to put it on film for Michigan to have to worry about. So there's a lot of opportunities this weekend for things to happen, and whether that involves Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, we are still going to wait to find out about that about 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, I guess. So we'll see.
Yeah, we don't need, and we're not going to specifically make bold predictions about Jeremiah or Carnell before we get to all. Yeah, well, you can see by maybe what we're going to start with in just a second what we think might happen. We did get another mailbag question, Birm. So awesome. Putting you on the spot, it is Jack Martin. If you want to send these in, we'll probably have a full mailbag next week, if I had to guess, right, Birm? Like maybe 3 Thoughts Thursday.
Yeah, I think. The thing about the Ohio State Michigan week is that like we could talk about that game to our blue in the face, but also I don't want to talk about that game because it makes me sick to my stomach. So mailbags.
We're off the cuff. I think that's what's going to be the case. It's going to be the 3 Thoughts Thursday. It'll be Thanksgiving. It'll be a Thanksgiving mailbag. And so that's the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com if you want to send those in. The Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. We appreciate, heard from several people the last couple weeks asking for feedback. They're visiting for the UCLA game. There's their first game in the Horseshoe. There's another who's this? Brandon Reed. He asked for some tips about going to the shoe. We're not great at that stuff since we're in the stadium so early. We don't do the pre-gaming, but I tried to we'll try and help wherever we can with food recommendations or any of that other stuff that you might need. Just mentioning that because you can ask us things that maybe don't go on the show. We're happy to try and help with that. This came from Jack Martin, though, Jack in Columbus. He said during the offseason, there was pretty unanimous agreement that if the Buckeyes could have one player back from last year's team, that it would be Tyleek Williams. There was a lot of concern about the defensive line going into the season, given the inexperience. With the arrival of Caden McDonald and the slow start run game, which failed to live up to the Sonic and Knuckles Ohio State run game he's talking about, to live up to the Sonic and Knuckles preseason hype, have your answers to this hypothetical changed? Thanks for doing what you guys do. Yeah, your shows make me look forward to the Columbus morning commute. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate that. I think I would still very much be enamored by the possibility of Tyleek or Ty Hamilton lining up to Caden McDonald. And I've been highly complimentary. I love what Tywone Malone has done. Those guys, especially Tyleek, he's a first round NFL draft pick. And the overall depth of that defensive line group, I would say, is still like a mild concern. If you're talking about getting through the playoff push in 3 to 4 talent equated games in a row, I think you'd still like to have one of those back. That's if you had Quinshon or Travion, maybe we were talking about a very different offense as well. So I understand where he's coming from for sure, but I think to me, it's Ohio State's going to get what it needs out of the run game, which I think has really improved over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation either right at the start of the season or right at the end of the summer, and we were asked a similar question if the conversation has changed. And I brought up Travion Henderson at that point because I think what he provided Ohio State in the pass protection game, and the run game, and the passing the ball out of the backfield game, I think like you require 4 different running backs to get all of the things that Travion Henderson was providing you a year ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that there is still an argument to be made, but as we sit here today recording this on November the 20th, my answer is Emeka Egbuka because it would sure be nice to know that you had another receiver that had a lot of experience and a lot of productivity and a lot of leadership, ready to rock and roll alongside Brandon Ennis and the guys that we're going to talk about in a minute. Because I mean, again, we're not making bold predictions here. I will be surprised, just like I was last week, if either Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate play on Saturday, based on what we've heard or seen this week. I still think it's precautionary, but I do think it opens up the door in a major way for Bryson Rogers to continue his ascent and to become a player that Ohio State is going to not just be able to count on next season, but feature next season, because what he's done in place of Carnell Tate over the last couple of weeks, I think has been really eye-opening. It's only 2 catches a game, but the getting open, the route running, the holding onto the football, tough catches over the middle, sliding catches on 3rd and longs. Like I think that there's the light is officially on for Bryson Rogers, and now the door is open. And going back to what you were talking about at the start of this show about maybe Ohio State needing to use this weekend as an opportunity to build some chemistry between Julian Sayin and these other receivers, I think that you are going to see a big day for Bryson Rogers on Saturday against Rutgers. I think he's going to have 7 catches. I think he's going to have 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think it's a Bryson Rogers breakout game, and it's a game that's going to make people go, well, I guess it doesn't really matter who Ohio State has at receiver. And Bryson Rogers, like, so much for him has been confidence. Everyone's talked about in the last 2 years about the ability to stretch the field, the route running, the way he's able to get open. And now that the confidence is there, but not his confidence because he's always had it. It's the confidence from Brian Hartline and Devin Jordan to know that they can put him out there. And I think that Bryson Rogers is going to have a career day, 7 catches, 142 touchdowns, and a Chris. It's a little different because he's in year 3. It's a Chris Olave awareness opportunity for heading into the Michigan game. Like, wait a second, there's another guy that could actually beat us. And I think if you at times put number 12 on Bryson Rogers, he would confuse people and thinking that he was Chris Olave out
there. That's one thing that I have found interesting. That's the word I'm going to go with about this week, is that maybe not everybody is panicked. Maybe not everyone is hitting the emergency button because of the uncertainty about Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And I certainly appreciate and understand why. They are the 2 best wide receivers in America. But how many years in a row now have we been talking about elite recruiting classes stacked on top of each other, elite level development of those wide receivers, and Brian Hartline's ability and Devin Jordan's ability for those 2 guys to both work with them and retain them and keep them in the program, keep them working and get them ready for the opportunities when they come, a bunch of years in a row. And so the tag that this is the best group of wide receivers in the country is not just because they have Jeremiah and Carnell Tate, which would be enough on its own, but it's that we say they are the deepest group of receivers in the country. And they didn't play that much in the first half of the season because Jeremiah and Carnell are so good, and also because the methodical pace. It kept the reps down, it kept the targets down for anybody else to come off the bench. So you have weapons that you mentioned, like Bryson Rogers, and a guy that I think could have the breakout game. We've got dueling BPs at wide receiver this week, a Mylan Graham or a Quincy Porter. It even applies directly to Brandon Ennis, where the criticism that was leveled at him during September when he wasn't making many plays and the football wasn't in his hands a lot. Well, when those other two were out there, why would you need to just throw it around? And there weren't a lot of targets to spare for them. Well, now they're in a different situation. And if you're recruiting and developing and producing at the deepest level in the country, then yeah, there will be some drop off between Jeremiah and Carnell. Is it a drop off below 25 other programs in college football to what you can get from your wide receivers? I still think they would be top 5 at wide receiver if they played without them into the playoff. And that's a crazy thing to say, but that's how good I think this next wave is. Mylan Graham has been waiting for that opportunity, just like Bryson Rogers has. 2 weeks ago, Mylan had the drop at Purdue. He had to sit for a while and sit with that and stew and wait for that next opportunity. Then he made the most of it. Then he made the most of his opportunities last week against UCLA. And maybe just as important as the catches that he had was some of the downfield blocking that he helped spring Isaiah West on his long run there against the Bruins. So I don't know that I'm going to go quite as crazy. I think you're probably right that Bryson Rogers will finish with more catches and more yards than Mylan on Saturday. I'll defer to you on that one. But I think that, 5 catches for 70 yards and a score would be another thing that would have to put the country on alert that, maybe there won't just be a collapse of the Ohio State offense because 2 of the best weapons in the country aren't available for however long. We don't know, but there are guys that are ready and willing, I think, to take up that mantle.
Well, and again, to your point, I mean, there's certainly reason, and it's understandable why people are hand-wringing and uncomfortable and nervous about, whatever comes down the road for Jeremiah and Carnell. Again, last week we didn't think Jeremiah was going to play, and he did. I think that this week we could see the same thing. He's kind of a freak athlete. Like, he's not someone that's normal, but he shouldn't have to play. And so I don't mean to bright side this or whatever the psychological analysis buzzword of the week is, but I think that it's better for Ohio State fans right now to consider the opportunity this opens up for Bryson, for Mylan, for Quincy, for David Adolph, for everyone else than to worry too much about what it means against Rutgers. And I know that the natural inclination is to worry about what it means for Michigan and beyond, and I completely understand that. But we're not going to get answers that satisfy that question until this time next week. So it makes more sense for me to focus on the positives and the opportunities for these other guys. And as you mentioned, Brian Hartline's recruiting. This is why you recruit all the 5-star receivers and why you recruit all the 4-star receivers. So if something goes down, I mean, like it did in 2022 when we were wondering about Jackson Smith and Jigba's return, or in 2024 or 23 when we worried about Emeka Egbuka's return, like that's when other guys step up. And so it's the opportunity for these guys. And I think that they're both really, really ready for it. Mylan obviously had the drop, as you mentioned, but you know what? Jeremiah Smith dropped a couple balls. He dropped the first pass ever thrown to him in a game too. So it turned out okay. So I think that you can see this is a big moment for these guys this weekend, regardless of what happens with JJ and Carnell, because even if they were both cleared to play, I don't think that they would play more than a quarter based on how this game should go.
Well, they don't call you Optimistic Birm for nothing.
They don't call me it generally, but I do appreciate when they do. I'm also optimistic about Bo Jackson in the run game against Rutgers. And again, this conversation is a little bit nuanced based on what we're just talking about when it comes to the need to develop the chemistry with receivers and Julian Sayin. But Rutgers is dead last in the country in yards per rush. Bo Jackson has been exceptional. So was Isaiah West. Now we're seeing the James Peoples train emerge. But I think this is a game where you lean on Bo and you say, hey, let's see what happens if we give you 20 carries, because I think the Buckeyes want to firmly establish a pecking order heading into the last couple games of this season and the playoff push. And without going too deep into Bo's stats and how good he's been, he's the guy that's been this close multiple times to breaking one. He had the long run against Purdue that got called back. I'm not going to go on a limb and say that he's going to finish with 20 carries or 150 yards or whatever. I think he's going to score on a 50-plus yard touchdown this weekend. He's been this close multiple times. I think it's finally the week he's going to break one. Rutgers will sell out. Shiana will do some run blitzes and try to make impactful plays in the backfield. And Bo's good enough and strong enough to make guys miss and to brush guys off. And I think that you're going to see the first 50-yard touchdown run of the season for Ohio State.
I think you're really on a roll, Birm. These are good. When we got to the end of September, it was like, okay, he's impressing. Can he do this thing? Can he, pick up the blitzes? Can he be a receiving threat out of the backfield? He's going to be able to handle all the responsibilities. And ultimately, can he protect the football? I remember spending several weeks just talking about the ball security issue and the ball, the touchdown that got away with a fumble at the goal line. And then he fixed that. And then he developed in this part of his game and he enhanced this other part of his game. I just am marveling at the fact that he has become an all-around bell cow running back by mid-November of his freshman year. I just did not see that coming.
No, neither did I. And, like I said, he's had, I think 5 runs over 50 yards this year. But to my knowledge, he's not scored on one of them. And I think it's time. He's proving that he's not just a reliable guy in between the 20s, but last week was the first opportunity to really show what he can do in the red zone. The way that he can impact the game as a receiver, Ryan Day and the Buckeyes have talked about that they thought he was running routes better than receivers in the spring. So Bo Jackson has brought along the running backs with him. Now we're seeing the surge from Isaiah West and James Peoples and CJ Donaldson back this week. But I think it goes back to what I was told at Illinois, which is the running game is going to go as far as Bo Jackson takes it. And I think it's time to start leaning on him. Yeah,
I think that's definitely going to happen. And it's certainly important based on what's going to happen in 8 days from now. Let's spin the tight end roulette wheel. It has not worked out very well for us, Birm.
It is a gamble, though. There's just so many.
There's 5 spots on the wheel. I took Max Clare a couple weeks ago. I thought that was as close to a lock as you possibly could have had because we're factoring in the productivity and the skill of these tight ends with the way that Ohio State is using them more and upticking both targets and the packages where there's 4 of them on the field at a time and trying to showcase that for future recruits. And it's like, well, Max Clare's going to get one in the homecoming game to Purdue for him. You said last week, Nate Roberts is going to go wild. He had a good game, but I don't know that bold prediction quite hit for you.
Nope.
And now I'm like, well, it's senior day. Ohio State's got a senior tight end, and they're going to get him a red zone target. And Will Kazmarek, by golly, he's going to score. It has to happen. We're due for a tight end bold prediction to hit, and it's going to. I'm staking the crown on it. Will Kazmarek will score, and he will have 2 catches for 25 yards. How bold is that, baby?
Boy, that's not bold at all, really. But
come on.
It is. I feel like we've been like a week behind all the time on the season. Will's highest catch output is 2. Hasn't happened since the Ohio game, which was clearly an effort by Ohio State to get him the ball. He did not score a touchdown in that game, however. I think that senior day, like you said, it makes sense. And I'm on board. He's actually going to score Ohio State's first touchdown. So hey, you got it.
A little drill down action.
All right. You got this. You got this one. It's going to be a seam shot. It's going to be a 30-plus yard touchdown.
A seam shot.
Yep,
are you suggesting he might be a seam demon?
I'm suggesting that he is a seam imposter and a guy that people are not going to pay attention to when he's in the seam. And because they're going to they're not going to throw him the ball. He's not the seam demon like these other guys. He's a guy that is a short yardage master. And no, not this week. It's a Will Kazmarek 30-yard touchdown against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. His long this season. Remember, he does have a 47-yard touchdown this season. So he's shown he can do it. His touchdown against Grambling was 47 yards. He's shown the ability to
and
work.
Where was that? Where was that throw? It was in the seam.
So let's go back to square one here. for Keenan Bailey and the tight ends. I love what Will Kazmarek has brought this team. I think it's a good reminder for people that not everybody who transfers in has to come in to be a superstar. Like there's a role that everyone has to fill. And Will Kazmarek, the 2 years he spent at Ohio State, has made him an NFL tight end, and he's going to be in the league for a long time. Maybe not a first or second or third round pick, but this is a guy who's going to get picked up in the 6th or 7th round, and he's going to make a roster because he is tough as nails and he does everything right. So, when you start to look at these guys and you go down the list of everyone that's come in, and maybe they don't live up to the hype like Max Clare, if people thought he would have the year that he hasn't had, but it's funny. Tight end is still a developmental position, and Ohio State's showing that you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Farrell, another 89 for Ohio State, still collecting those checks, and I think that Will Kazmarek will certainly do the same thing. And you're going to bring us home with bold prediction number 3 with number 96.
Yeah, here's the thing. Rutgers has been sacked 31 times this year. That's pretty bad. It's 3.5, over 3.1 a game. It's good for number 122 in the nation. I think that it's a game right now for Edric Houston to step up, and I think you're going to see a 2-sack performance out of Edric. I think he brings a lot of juice, a lot of energy. He's been revitalized in these last few weeks. And now with Taiwan back and healthy, and Will Smith in there healthy, and Caden and everyone healthy, I think you're going to see a pretty good rotation from the Buckeyes in the first half or two, first half of the third quarter this week. And I think Edric's going to have a day. I think he's going to play some really good minutes. I think that it's a positive development for Ohio State that he's becoming the player that they thought he would be. He's buying in. And I think he's going to see the results of that with a 2-sack performance against Rutgers. And I'm not going to do what I do. I'm not going to take my BP and make it unreachable by adding a strip sack or something like that in there, because that's just what I do. But I do think Edric is going to have the best game of his season, and I think it's going to end up with 2 sacks. Whatever else happens from there, let's just throw that on top. But I'm really rooting for this kid to have that sort of day, so people can understand, like, he's still in game like 12 of learning how to play this position. So it's time for him to step up.
Yeah, 13 months into that position change. But that was smart. Great job by you by showing a little restraint. They don't call these bold parlays. They're just bold predictions. But that's not going to stop me from going absolutely wild with the Blocko, because now the gauntlet has been thrown down. Big brother Lorenzo found the end zone last week, and time is running out for Sonny. He needs to get himself a touchdown. And I think it's going to happen on a pick 6. I think he's going to have 10 tackles in this game. I think he's going to have 2 tackles for a loss, and I think he's going to have a sack, because the world is not appreciating Sonny Styles enough. And at Ohio State specifically, this is the last time that it's going to happen in the horseshoe. And I think there's going to be he and Lorenzo both talked after practice on Wednesday. We know that the family's going to be there. Extended family's going to be there. Going to be a huge party. Lorenzo was joking about his dad smoking a cigar after the game last week because one of his boys scored a touchdown in the horseshoe. Now it's time for the other one. And it wouldn't be right if Sonny didn't follow that up with his own this week. And I think it's going to happen.
I like it. I like it quite a bit. Sonny's the highest graded linebacker in the Big Ten, according to PFF this year, despite the fact that, as you said, he hasn't been talked about quite as much as other guys on the team, and which is fine. It's the way it happens when a superstar comes out of nowhere. People get enamored, and that's what they talk about. They don't talk about the guy that's just doing the job everyone expected him to do. Sometimes
he did it to Cody Simon last year.
It's true. And so he, more than anybody, he should understand that the lack of conversation doesn't mean that he can't make an impact. And we saw what Cody did in the playoff and becoming an absolute game wrecker. And I think that there's a path for Sonny to do the same thing as teams now start to scheme away from Marvell Reese. I think it does open the door for Sonny to get more creative. And fortunately for him and for Ohio State fans, Matt Patricia is aware of how to get these mismatches and get these opportunities for these players. So it is wild, again, to go back to the start of the show, like 4 years ago, to sit and think that Sonny Styles is already done at Ohio State. Playing his final game in Ohio Stadium is pretty nuts. And, Urban Meyer would have come in and said, "Oh, you got any more of those Styles boys?" But there's not, unfortunately, at this point. We'll have to wait till Sonny and Lorenzo Jr. have their kids down the road to see the next time a Styles plays at Ohio State. But he's been awesome, great representative, and perfect embodiment of what the Blocko is supposed to be about. And I think that you're on the money. I think that there's a big opportunity for him this weekend to send some fans home happy. And if we get back-to-back Styles boys touchdowns and we don't hear a little Styles boys for life over the PA, I'm going to be really, really pissed off. Caleb Clark, if you're listening, you're out there, look up the Styles boys.
I'm a styled boy for life.
It would really, I mean, how has that not been dropped yet? Caleb, we know you watch the show, so let's just get it to happen, okay?
Hopefully you made it to the end of another half-hour Freaky Friday bold prediction show. And kudos to you if you did. And thank you to all of you who've been sending in emails, who've been watching on 97.1 The Fan, 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, or downloading the podcast only, Apple, Spotify, Roku, wherever. We sincerely appreciate you all. It's been a stressful week, I know, for all of you wondering. Just try and enjoy senior day. And then whatever happens after that, we're all going to be along for the ride. We're going to cover it the best as we can, as we always try to on the Austin Birm Show. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Believe there's talking stuff coming as well later on Friday. So stick around for all that. And then we'll see you bright and early in the Horseshoe on senior day, Ohio State and Rutgers. A little bit afternoon. I think probably like 12:16 the Buckeyes will kick off. But we'll be there for the pregame keys and then all the coverage after that. Right here on the Austin and Birm Show. For Birm, I'm Austin. We'll talk to you later.